1. 1928 Okeechobee Storm. The hurricane, which was a Category 4 storm when it made landfall on the Florida coast, proceeded swiftly inland with powerful winds. The wind started moving Lake Okeechobee's surface water westward when they came into contact with the lake. Consistent winds continued to drive that surface water westward, pushing much more of it. Within a short period of time, a storm surge that was 6 to 10 feet high and built up against the lake's western edge had driven much of the water from the lakes. The hurricane, which was a Category 4 storm when it made landfall on the Florida coast, proceeded swiftly inland with powerful winds. The wind started moving Lake Okeechobee's surface water westward when they came into contact with the lake. Consistent winds continued to drive that surface water westward, pushing much more of it. Within a short period of time, a storm surge that was 6 to 10 feet high and built up against the lake's western edge had driven much of the water from the lakes. On the northwest and southwest sides of the lake, respectively, Okeechobee City and Belle Glade, a large portion of the surge's water discharged. The area of Belle Glade and Okeechobee City was under several feet of water. Homes, shops, highways, and schools were all inundated, and hurricane-force waves battered them. The surge inundated hundreds of square miles, and more than 1,000 people perished in the water. The Galveston Hurricane in 1900 Texas. The number of fatalities is estimated to have been between 8,000 and 12,000 persons. An accurate figure of casualties was impossible to acquire due to the sheer number of persons involved in the recovery activities and those killed. On September 8, 1900, the storm, which was a Category 4 hurricane with a storm surge of 8 to 15 feet, made landfall south of Galveston in Texas. This storm has the highest death toll of any hurricane in the United States due to the lack of notice and the significant storm surge. Today, we are lucky to have aircraft and weather satellites that watch over the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico. These often provide us with at least a few days' notice prior to an impending hurricane or tropical storm. In 1900, there were no such cautions. As a result, no one had time to get ready for the storm, and no one understood how crucial evacuation was. 3. Cheniere Caminada Hurricane. When it hit Cheniere Caminada Island, Louisiana, the 1893 Cheniere Caminada Hurricane, also known as the Great October Storm, killed 2,000 people, according to estimates. When the hurricane made landfall close to Cheniere Caminada, it was a Category 4 hurricane with winds that were clocked at 135 miles per hour. A storm surge up to 16 feet high that drowned nearly half of Cheniere Caminada's inhabitants was the main cause of the fatality. A frequent misperception is that a hurricane of a lower category poses a smaller hazard than one of a higher category. As an illustration, Hurricane Katrina, which cost the most in the history of the United States, was only a Category 3 hurricane when it made landfall. Since New Orleans was already below sea level, Hurricane Katrina traveled slowly, pushed storm surges onto the land, and dumped a lot of rain on the city. The only Category 5 hurricane to rank among the top 5 most expensive hurricanes to hit the United States was Hurricane Andrew. 4. Katrina Hurricane 2005. The Hurricane Katrina was without a doubt the most expensive hurricane in American history, causing more than $125 billion in property damages, or $160 billion when converted to 2017 currency. Many buildings along the Mississippi coast were entirely demolished by the storm surge, and the destruction reached miles inland. Levees in the New Orleans metropolitan area were breached and topped by Katrina's storm surge, which caused much of the city and its eastern suburbs to be submerged. Hurricane Katrina's wind damage reached far inland, affecting Miami-Dade and Broward counties in Florida as well as northern Mississippi and Alabama. 5 to 2017, San Jose Island in Texas. With gusts of 130 miles per hour, Category 4 Hurricane Harvey initially touched down on San Jose Island in Texas in 2017. A few hours later, Harvey made landfall. 300,000 buildings and 500,000 automobiles are thought to have been damaged or destroyed. After the hurricane turned into a tropical storm and stalled over Texas, the Houston metropolitan area received more than 30 inches of rain over the course of 3 days in many locations. Later, Harvey returned to the Gulf of Mexico, made landfall in Louisiana, and then continued on a northeasterly course as a tropical depression, bringing further flooding along the route. A total of $125 billion is thought to have been lost due to flooding, property damage, automobile damage, infrastructure damage, and other related losses. 6 to 2012, Superstorm Sandy, New York and New Jersey. 2012's Superstorm Sandy, also known as Hurricane Sandy, left behind $70 billion in damage and 286 fatalities. The storm's impact on the densely populated regions of New York and New Jersey was responsible for much of that damage. The storm's surge that struck New York City inundated the city's streets, tunnels, and subways and damaged utility infrastructure. Damage was incurred in the Caribbean islands, Bermuda, and the United States.